Do you dislike writing emotions because you think you're doing it wrong? Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to avoid doing it wrong. I would like to say there is no wrong way of doing it, but sometimes we know in our heart, right, that just the feeling, it just isn't getting through. So today we're going to talk about how to avoid using the emotion when we're talking about the emotion, how to avoid saying the emotion, okay? We want to show the emotion, we don't want to say the emotion. And we're also going to talk about how to, another problem that tends to happen is that people don't keep the emotion in the character's point of view, and we definitely want to do that. So I'm going to talk about both of those things today, so join me. Welcome to the Julia Monte channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Monte, and thank you for joining me now for the, are we on the fourth video of emotions? And what we're going to start talking about this week is things to avoid. So what you want to avoid, first of all, is using the emotion in describing the emotion. Okay, so for example, we don't want to say that the character was afraid. We don't want to do that because that doesn't create any kind of emotion. So he was afraid. That doesn't help us, right? As the reader. What we want is we want to feel the fear with the character. So you've heard show, don't tell. It's definitely something you want to do when you are describing emotions. And I'm going to share with you. So when I first started writing, this is one of the things that I struggled with a little bit. I don't know if I should say a little bit or a lot. Like I could write emotions. I just felt like I was writing them wrong, or that I was going into melodrama, or that I was maybe overdoing it. Okay, so I guess I was struggling with it. But I found this book called Creating Character Emotions by Anne Hood. I'll go ahead and give you the link so that you can go to Amazon if you want and take a look at the book. But I want to read one little example that she has here that is really good. Where was this? Okay. So she was talking about fear, okay, on how to show fear. What she does is she gives us an example of what not to do, and then she gives us an example of how to do it. So don't state the emotion. So the example she uses is shaking with fear, Dottie stepped forward. Well, we don't want to say she was shaking with fear. She was shaking is okay, but we want to let the reader figure out that it's with fear. And if you've set it all up and you've got the atmosphere around it, we know why she's shaking. We don't really need to say she's shaking with fear. Okay, and then she gives a different example, a better example from a different book. And let's see, where was it? I think it was, she uses Sue Miller's book, The Good Mother. And this is a little snippet, a little scene that she has where her little girl, her daughter, is having a bad dream, or she's having a dream, okay? Molly, I whispered, and pulled her to me as I clambered in. Her body began to shape itself into mine, to cling to me, even before she really woke up. Molly, I said, Molly. And then suddenly, with consciousness, her grip tightened and she started to cry, screaming in sharp pain like a child who's fallen, who's bitten her tongue, or who's had her hand on a hot kettle, who's lost. Mommy, she screamed. She cried and held on to me tighter even as I held her. Mommy, Mommy, she shrieked as she would over and over in her memory of this moment. Okay, so this is a great way of doing it, right? The bad way of doing it would be to, again, tell us she woke up, she had a bad dream, and she was scared. That's what we don't want to do. We want to show that, because then we can feel it. We can feel what this little girl's feeling. We can feel her fear. And we want to make sure that we stay in the character's point of view who's telling the stories. So what I want to talk about today is not only not mentioning the word, the emotion that you're trying to describe, but also staying within that character's point of view. So just think if the mother, and it's very easy to slip out of that, okay? So if the mother says something like, I was holding her and I'm trying to think of how to do this poorly, how to write it bad. I saw her trembling with fear, and so at first, sometimes you don't really know you're slipping out of it, but as soon as you get into Molly's head, and that's what I'm trying to figure out how to do that here. Let's say that she says, Molly gripped me tighter, and trying to come out of the dream and realize that it wasn't real, that it was just a reality. But maybe it could be real. But maybe her grip tightened because she thinks that maybe, although she starts to realize that it is a dream. I'm doing a terrible job here. Maybe even though she realizes it was just a dream, she knows that maybe this could really happen. Okay, so by doing that or saying it that way, what mom is doing is getting into Molly's head. And that's what you don't want to do. Okay, so you want to stay away from, and I will actually link this to my blog because I wrote this much better than now as I'm trying to think of how to say it. Because again, you're trying to write wrong in your writing. It happens without you even trying. But when you're trying to purposely write something wrong or think of something, how to do it wrong, sometimes it's hard to do it. But anyhow, what you do not want to do is you don't want to get out of mom's head. Now, if I'm in Molly's point of view, if I'm in the dream, then yes, I know what I'm thinking. I know what I'm dreaming, but mom doesn't know what she's dreaming. So all mom can give you at this point is just what Molly is doing, how she's gripping. And it's great because that's more than enough for us as the reader. We see her screaming, we see her crying, we see her gripping her mom and molding herself to her mom's body because she's afraid, right? So we don't need the writer to tell us she's afraid. We can feel that she's afraid, and that's really all we need. So what happens if it's obvious, like we see that somebody is afraid or somebody is sad, somebody's crying, and we know, like somebody has just lost their favorite pet and they're crying, like we know, right? Can we say, oh, I wanted to give him a hug because he was sad because he just lost his pet? Yes, you can do that. So you can speculate as long as you don't make it sound like you actually know what the reason is. So Molly's mom couldn't have she really couldn't tell us that she was having a bad dream or that she was waking up from a bad dream. Why? Because some people even may appear like they're waking up, but they're actually not waking up. They're actually having night terrors and they're still asleep. So we can't even assume that she's waking up, right? So we have to be careful when we're describing somebody else's emotion and what's happening in somebody else's head because we don't really know. But we can tell the reader that we're assuming that we see this. I see him crying over his pet, and obviously he's sad about the pet, right? I can see that he's grieving over the loss of his pet or something like that, right? But we want to make sure that we're not describing their emotion. We're only just assuming that this is the way we're speculating, right? That this is what this person is feeling because we're not really quite sure what this person is feeling. And it's actually better not to even do that. If somebody's angry and they're punching a wall, then we know that they're angry. We don't really need the person to say it. We don't need them to say what the emotion is, and we don't need to speculate on how that person is feeling. And then even if you are in the head, you're the person that's angry. You're not going to really say, like, do you ever say that? I feel really angry right now. You might be thinking that. I feel really angry and I can't do anything to express it. But usually we just do things. We're not really saying that. I'm angry, I'm lonely, I'm whatever. I just am. I'm not voicing or naming what the feeling is. I'm just feeling the feeling. And so it's the same thing when we're writing it. You're not actually saying what the emotion is. You're showing by the actions of the character what that character is feeling. Okay? So remember those two things. Don't name the emotion and stay within that character's head. Whoever is viewing the emotion or feeling the emotion, don't pop out of that head and start assuming other things. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. Go ahead and hit the like button and share this video. And next week, we will continue talking about things to avoid when you're writing about emotions. Join me then. Bye-bye.